listening to Driving Law, a podcast by Kyla Lee about all things related to the rules of the road.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Driving Law. I am Kyla Lee at Acumen Law, and with me, my co-host, Paul Doroshenko.
And we were just talking that most podcasts have people like facing each other with two separate cameras.
I look at you during this podcast. You're the only one that doesn't look at me. You don't know that I'm looking at you because you don't look at me.
I will sadly admit that I'm usually looking at myself to see how bad I look.
I don't know if that's what's going on.
Well, no, because I lift my head up when I have my glasses on, so I have this tendency to do that when I'm at something close. So I'm like, it's not a good look for me.
Okay.
Anyway, we have a lot to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about. Man, it has been a whirlwind week.
Well, Tuesday was the world windiest of the.
I don't know about that, Paul. So,
well, we were in Dawson Creek and it was windy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Monday proceeded like a normal day. We did our IRP hearings. We got on a plane and went to Dawson Creek for court. Then everything broke down from there.
Yeah.
Tuesday morning, we were scheduled to have 2 9:00 IRP hearings.
We get messages from June here in the office, who's Kyla's #1 assistant. He could probably conduct IRP hearings at this point. He's brilliant. And he was in touch with the office of the superintendent, and they wouldn't accept our submissions for the day. Why? Job action.
Job action, yeah. So, and they told him that all the IRP hearings that day were being canceled to be rescheduled at a later date.
So people have paid their money. They paid $200 for their right for a hearing. Their driver's licenses are suspended. They don't have a license. Their vehicle is in impound. They're paying for the storage of it. And the government is not giving people a hearing.
Yeah.
And
that they're statutorily obligated to hold.
Yeah, required by law. So Motor Vehicle Act says you pay the money, you get a hearing. That is a right to have a hearing. And all of this because the BC government workers who are on strike and represented by the BC GEU are taking job action around the province, and adjudicators had told us that this was something that was coming potentially down the road. And here we are, a government blindsided by something that was completely predictable.
It was totally predictable. They knew it was likely to happen, and there are ways they could deal with it. So exempt employees like the managers of adjudication, the superintendent herself, all of those individuals, except for the superintendent herself, were once adjudicators.
Yes.
So they are...
And the superintendent can be working in that office. The superintendent can answer taxes. And
is the one who is, in fact, the person who is supposed to hear the cases. They delegate their authority.
It says a delegate of the superintendent.
No. It says the superintendent, and then it says in the legislation, section 118, they may delegate their duty. Yeah.
So here we are, and we've got, at this point, we've gone probably from a couple dozen to probably 100 or so people who are affected, because we have all of these cases where we've argued the hearings. We've gone and conducted a hearing, and our clients are entitled to a decision. And the decision is supposed to come 21 days from the date that it was issued. And no decision's coming. So all of these people are in limbo.
Yep.
Now,
and people who get their IRPs and are trying to file for review aren't being allowed to schedule hearing dates.
Now, yeah, so you've got an IRP. You the first day, you couldn't even file for review. So it could be the 7th day. The BC Court of Appeal says there's no extension of the 7 days basically in any time. Maybe we could argue that. We'd have to run into court and argue it. But again, says that there's no extension of the 7 days, and it doesn't even spell out extenuating circumstances. All of this, we'll go more into detail about it and what we're doing, but all of this would be front page news in normal times.
Yeah. Yeah. Once upon a time, had this happened, it would be the front page of every paper. It would be on the 6 o'clock news. The superintendent would be getting contacted to ask to give a statement. The minister would be out there, talking
Hounded by a reporter with a microphone.
And now, you have Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, Trump, Epstein files, Jimmy Kimmel.
Poilievre back in Parliament spouting
Yes.
crap.
Eleanor Sturco getting booted from the BC Conservatives.
The BC Conservatives continuing to exist. David Eby's ratings in the tank. Postal strike that happens just on the basis of the government making a statement about rural post office boxes and changing delivery.
Yeah.
It's
This is small potatoes.
This is now
in the
small
news,
potatoes.
which
If
is
it
wild.
was 10 or 15 years ago, it would have been, again, front page thing. And the sad thing about that is good luck getting traction. So, we have a plan to deal with certain aspects of it. We've been, this is something, I guess this podcast is more of an announcement of what's happening than anything. And you can see our frustration. Like, I was on Mike Smith's show earlier this week, yesterday.
Yeah.
We talked about it for a minute or so, but we also talked about cell phone enforcement, and every call that came in was about cell phone enforcement. And we've had a problem with the IRP scheme from the beginning, explaining the unfairness of it, because people don't care about fairness for people who are alleged to have driven drunk or refused a breath sample. They can be completely innocent. But courts don't really care about fairness so much. It is the low-hanging fruit to take away rights is drunk driving law, and it's very hard to persuade them to care, and it's very hard to persuade the population to care, and it's really unfortunate. And the thing that's got me thinking again is drawn me back to this issue when the scheme was originally struck down. So the first version of the IRP scheme in BC was struck down. It was found unconstitutional. And it went to the Supreme Court of Canada, and it was found unconstitutional, but the government said they won at the Supreme Court of Canada. And that was republished. But after it was struck down in BC, we went back into court and said, well, you struck the law down and said it was unconstitutional. Now, let's talk about the remedy for our clients who all got unconstitutional IRPs. And the judge said, well, no, there's no remedy.
Well, you raise an interesting point there, Paul, though, with the fact that the legislation was struck down and found unconstitutional, because why was it found unconstitutional?
Well, it was a Section 8 violation that you couldn't...
Because
you couldn't actually challenge it.
Yes, there was no reasonable opportunity to challenge the apparent result of the ASD, and the court said you have a charter-protected right to be able to challenge this. And what's going on here? All these people are not being allowed to challenge it. The people who've had their hearings and aren't getting decisions, the people who are trying to schedule hearings and aren't being allowed to schedule them, the people who had hearings scheduled and are getting them kicked down the road 5 weeks. 5 weeks from their date of service.
And with no reasonable expectation that anything's going to happen then.
No. Who knows?
They've always been very careless with rights, in my view there, and in particular, rendering decisions. So we see from time to time when there's a case where it's very clear that we are going to succeed for our client, we look good. It's maybe egregious for some reason or another, like it's a full-on legal argument that we're going to succeed on some sort of procedural thing. The police have done something really wrong, but the police describe our client as drunk or something like that, and they will wait to render a decision. They'll wait until the 90 days are up. In those circumstances to render a decision. And we have had no remedy. Like, what are we going to do? Go into court and say, well, they revoked the prohibition. Well, the judge originally in that first case said there's no remedy for anybody. So you don't get a remedy if they jerk you over. You don't get a remedy.
Okay, let's get back on track.
Okay.
So what has happened since? First, the hearings that were on Tuesday, Wednesday, we didn't have a hearings on Thursday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday were all adjourned to a date unknown, just generally. No,
they didn't let us know at first. Yeah. Nobody notified us. It was only June finding it.
They phoned us and said a letter will be forthcoming, and no letter ever came. Still awaiting the letter. We phoned yesterday to find out what was happening to our hearings that were supposed to take place today, and they said, we told you earlier in the week that no hearings this week are proceeding. And we're like, no, you told us Tuesday wasn't proceeding and we'd know more later. And Wednesday, nobody called us, so we figured out from there that no hearings were proceeding.
And Kyla wrote to the Solicitor General to ask for some clarification. Now, normally when you write to the Solicitor General for something usually happens, but maybe not anymore. Who
No,
knows?
not in these crazy times, these unprecedented times. Wrote to the Solicitor General. Also I wrote to the superintendent on every single file that was adjourned generally with no fixed date to say, first of all, there is no authority in the Motor Vehicle Act to adjourn something to no date. You have to schedule a date because that's required under the legislation. Secondly, by not scheduling a date, they lost jurisdiction over the matter. They abandoned it.
So they've lost jurisdiction over the matter. They also have no right to not proceed with the hearing. They can only adjourn something after proceeding with the hearing.
Yeah. Well, no, they
So
can adjourn it. But they can only issue a notice of extension after the hearing.
Exactly. So, then again, they have the power to give people their licenses back temporarily, and they have the power to release the vehicles and let people go pay for the towing and storage and then reimburse them later if they're successful. But they're not doing any.
They're not using it.
They're
Yeah.
not using that power.
And I also said in the letter that they should give the stays of the prohibition and the release of the vehicle, and that they didn't have the statutory authority to issue the extension. So in response to that letter, they scheduled hearings unilaterally without consulting our calendar, scheduled hearings, double booked me
For weeks down the road.
starting October 14th after Thanksgiving. And they double booked me for 9, double booked me for 10, double booked me for 11, and double booked me for 12, and double booked me for 1. How am I supposed to do 2 hearings at once? I don't know. And these were all hearings that had been scheduled for me to be available to do them otherwise.
So when we go down to schedule these things, we show up with our schedule, right? We have to be very precise and know what we've got going on.
Yeah.
Kyla's got a full schedule. If you were to look at the schedule from a month down the road for a year down the road, every day is booked for every day. But we know a lot of things will fold in the weeks before. And then those days open up, and it's the weeks before that we're scheduling the IRP hearing. So we've got about a 2-week range that we're scheduling hearings in, because that's the range where other things fall apart, end up being deals, trials, collapse. And
the policies too are that your hearing is to be conducted within 14 days of the date of service. That's in their policy manual. And it's also not even discretionary in their policy manual. I read their policy manual this morning. It's not discretionary, it's mandatory. It says the hearing must proceed within this time frame.
So what are we doing about it? I will preface what we're doing about it by saying you can see that we are pained by the fact that we can't get sympathy for our clients or get a public hearing on it.
So there's 2 other things I've done that you don't know about that I did this morning.
You're going to tell me all about it, but I'm just saying, our problem is that even if we can manage to get it into court, the view has been historically, you don't get a remedy, and we'll see what we can persuade them to. But we show up passionately caring about this thing in court, and the rest of society just is worried about.
Meanwhile, these poor people, and I post about this on TikTok, and people in the comments are like, I have no sympathy. These people drove drunk. I'm sorry.
You have no idea.
You have no idea. Some of the people that are currently awaiting a decision are people with serious medical conditions documented that weren't able to produce a sample. I have one person who was not in or operating the vehicle and was wrongfully issued the prohibition, has no hearing date. I have people who had unreliable results because of various things the officer was supposed to do and didn't do.
I'm waiting on one where it was a clear device malfunction, obvious device malfunction. The adjudicator at the other end was I could hear exasperated breaths as I was describing and going through and explaining.
Sure, they weren't exasperated at you.
They could have been, but they're not rendering decisions. They're not working, right? The adjudicators aren't working. So everybody in that office, the adjudicators, the staff of the office, they could have been made essential services. It's an adjudicative function. The government made the decision not to do that.
I'm not going to say legislate.
That's not the point. That's not the point. The point is there was no plan to deal with it.
There was no.
Now we've got all of these decisions that are waiting. We're waiting on decisions, right? People who are being punished right now, many of them shouldn't be. And then we're also not getting hearings for people. And then the hearings that were scheduled are getting bumped to a date down the road, and they have no idea whether or not they can proceed on that date.
No.
I
And
think they're going to be ready to go on October 14th for
You'd-
back-to-back hearings.
you'd think there would be a plan. Like, I remember growing up, there was a very long BCTF strike when I was in school, and my dad was the principal of my high school. So when the BCTF strike happened, the students still went to school, and the administrator, well, most people stayed home, but the administrators came in and taught classes. The vice principal, the principal came in and taught classes.
A lot
to
of
people.
dodgeball.
Taught classes to people who showed up to school. You couldn't just turn kids away from school even if there was a strike. And so school happened, and my dad taught. I
Wow.
mean, it was mostly just making them work on their assignments, but still, the point was they had a plan.
Yeah.
There were people in the
They
building
thought about it. And
running it.
adjudicators have told us over the last month, well, we'll see if I'm still working, or we'll see what happens with this job action. Or so everybody knew is
Okay.
my point.
So what I've done today, now that they've also adjourned all of our hearings for Monday, further igniting a fire under me, I have written them another letter saying you do not have the authority to adjourn the hearing unilaterally, and it is procedurally unfair what you've done, because procedural fairness, you have the right to be heard. They're making if they, assuming for the sake of argument, they have the discretion to make the decision to adjourn the hearing before the hearing takes place, they have to do that, A, after hearing from the applicant on their position. They're making a discretionary decision. The applicant's entitled to be heard. And B, they have to do that after consultation with counsel's calendar, because you have the right to be represented by your lawyer, and to just reschedule it and be like, they're not available, not our problem. Like, they booked me for times when I'm in a trial.
And they should know this, because 23 years ago, I pushed them on something where they weren't giving people an opportunity to speak to prohibitions that were coming to them, and they changed their procedure to ensure that there was a right for people to speak to an impending prohibition. And then during the IRP scheme, they were imposing consequences on people without any hearing about discretionary consequences, without letting them make submissions. And we forced them to change, and then they changed the legislation. So they know this.
The most basic tenet of procedural fairness is that you have the right to be heard on a decision that affects you. And these decisions affect these people.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's awful. It is awful. So
step number one.
Step number one, sent a second letter being like, now you're violating procedural fairness. You'd better give our clients their licenses back.
So you'd think that we just go run to court, right? But again, we're trying to do it procedurally correctly, which is to notify them of their error and to give them the opportunity to fix it before we have to go to court.
Yes. So also in my letter, I excerpted from their policy manual the requirement that the hearing be scheduled within 14 days, pointing out that some of my clients are having hearings scheduled 5 weeks after they were issued the prohibition, more than a third of the prohibition being done, the entirety of the vehicle impoundment being done. And I also point out that their policy manual says that in determining whether to grant a stay, they're to consider the reasons for the stay and what prejudice person would suffer without having their license and their driving record. And none of these extensions that we've been getting have any analysis of any of the factors they're supposed to consider, or any analysis at all. There is no discernible chain of reasoning as to why there is not a stay being granted. And so because there's no discernible chain of reasoning, it is presumptively unreasonable.
So presumptively unreasonable. And again, what is the remedy? From our perspective, prohibitions that cannot have a hearing should be revoked.
Quash them.
They should be.
Call it a strike.
Yeah.
If the government wants people to serve their prohibitions, go to the table, make a deal.
Go to the table and make a deal. Recognize the fact that the government workers have a constitutional right to strike, and that there will be some consequences of it, and some consequences mean a small number of people will end up with an IRP that's revoked. One of the things that happens with IRPs, you should know, immediate roadside prohibitions, a drunk driving scheme that we have in BC, 90-day driving prohibition, 30-day vehicle impound. Those are not supposed to be issued, and are generally not issued in cases where there's an accident. They're not issued in cases where the people are falling down drunk, because then you don't use a roadside breath tester. So we're talking about like the people who are the least threat on the road, and who have all faced at least now 3 weeks of punishment, innocent or guilty.
Yeah.
So is there a public need to take this position where you're going to jerk them along during this time period for what? For what? So you're going to deny people their right to a hearing for what? So you can punish them for another 60 days? Like when they've already been punished for 30 days? Just revoke the fucking prohibition. Like,
Yeah. I also have prepared a draft petition. It'll be filed later today to the court. Have a client who's thrown himself forward to be the test case on this, arguing all of the things that I've alerted them to in their letter: their breaches of procedural fairness, their failure to give any reasons for not issuing stays and reinstating licenses and releasing vehicles, their failure to consult counsel's calendar, their failure to act within the scope of their jurisdiction under the legislation, their failure to conduct a hearing before issuing an extension, and I'm going to put it on next week on short leave. So government lawyers, you'd better file a response.
now are the government lawyers and the staff in the government lawyer's office going to be on strike?
Well, this is the
If that's
problem.
the
Like
case,
they're
I
a union.
I think the government has to go if that happens.
They might need outside counsel.
Yeah, they might need outside counsel, which is essentially hiring scabs. Government, NDP government, Labor government, going to hire scabs.
Or they could just stay all the prohibitions. That's what I said. I said, stay all the
It's
prohibitions.
not the end of the world for the government
They all
if they stay the prohibitions.
they all have letters. Every single file has a letter. It's very easy for them to just make it right in the meantime until the clients can get justice.
Yeah. So those are the options there. Meanwhile, we're here on the one hand, like trying to figure out what we're going to do. We're using the downtime because it is downtime for us, right? Like we're accustomed to conducting 3 to 10 hearings a day.
Sorry, it's downtime for you.
Well,
I just did 3 days of trial, and I have more trial next week. And
you made me go pick up some furniture yesterday for you. So it is I forget where I was going with this.
what are we doing with our downtime?
No, yeah, I know, and I had something that I wanted to say about it. It's the problem is that it's not really downtime in the sense that we are about to be hugely compressed with when these hearings get back on. They've scheduled them, as Kyla has noted, at days when we can't do them.
Yeah, and
we have clients who are still being issued IRPs, and we have to schedule those hearings. And so we're in this circumstance where, and they're going to be backlogged no matter what. They can't just bring in a bunch of adjudicators, and there's some who are retired who they might be able to bring back for the sake of this. I don't know, but
even still, like you're not
clearing a backlog for them has been very hard in the past. And we had a period of time where we were waiting months for decisions for people who are supposed to have short, quick punishment and really fast justice. And here, is there any chance of this, when is this going to get back online? What are the damage costs? Like I'm always thinking, okay, if we lose a good staff member, somebody decides to leave, Miriam decided to go travel around the world, good solid staff member, what is the cost of bringing somebody in, bringing them up to speed, getting them to the point where they are,
I don't know, Raven's
80%, we've done very well. Okay. But generally speaking, if you've got somebody and you lose somebody, it takes a long time to catch up to that and to catch up to the work that was, so that next person comes in, they're going to end up with a backlog before they get good enough at their job to be able to do it. That backlog, all of that stuff costs money. And here we are looking at like the amount of time that these people are going to be owed. The government could have just given them a fair offer. The government could be at the table negotiating this thing. And I've experienced this before with NDP governments and observed it before in BC, that because the NDP is the party of the unions and the working man, so to say,
NDP.
they end up in a situation where we end up with more labor strife than we did under the BC Liberals, at least with Gordon Campbell. They formed agreements with them. I don't know if the union looked at it and said, man, we don't want to have to negotiate with this dude. and formed an agreement that was less advantageous, I suspect they look at the NDP and say, we can humiliate you more than we can the pro-business guys.
Well, we've just spent 24 minutes humiliating the NDP for doing literally nothing.
Yeah. This is all in the context of some other pretty upsetting, scandalous stuff that is damaged their credibility hugely. I like David Eby as a person. As a premier, I'm always worried about somebody who is too extreme in any way, shape, or form. I've got his concerns about that. I like the radical center, which it's hard to attract anybody to politics if they radically believe in
Middle ground.
in a middle ground and non-revolution and like fixing things and making what works work.
Just a little revolution, just on housing and mental health and clean drugs.
So you've got your what some people would say are extremist views on some of those things, and I've got my
live.
I agree with you on, and then I'm sure David Eby would too. But problem is his remedies necessarily to get there are not the remedies that you would like. Point is, here we are. The government would be shamed by this in normal times.
Yep.
And it's not normal times. So we have two ridiculous drivers of the week. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
two ridiculous drivers.
Speaking of shaming government, we have two government ridiculous drivers of the week to shame. So this week, it's the shameful ridiculous driver of the week.
Yeah. So our finance minister here in BC was on a trip. I think, where was she? Was it in Europe or
no? It was in Boston. Boston.
Yeah. She was there for a few days.
A week.
That's still a few days. And apparently she used a limo wherever she traveled. Because one cannot travel except in a limo if you're the finance minister.
I guess so.
And the cost of that was $6,000.
Yeah.
$6,000 for a limo.
You can get an Uber Black for cheaper.
Back in the before days, you and I used to go to conferences in the States. We had all sorts of events that we went to, DUI, DLA. We'd be traveling with a group, and we would get Uber Blacks. I'd get the Uber Black one night. You'd get it one night. Somebody else would get it. Rarely was it me because our American friends are down there and know exactly what they're doing. But you can get an Uber Black for $45 for this trip or $75 for this trip. How many trips do you have to make to justify $6,000?
Never.
And your Uber Black is usually a big SUV. Like it's the same. There's not like limos, like short limos anymore.
7 people. It's the big old
Suburban type thing.
Yeah.
Chevy Tahoe.
Lincoln.
Yeah, Lincoln Navigator or whatever the big Lincoln SUV is, and that's usually what you're getting with the Black here. And it's always like it's the same amenities. You don't need what amenities you need in a limo. You're a government worker. You're a government employee. You're an elected official.
Bottle of water, you can bring that yourself.
You're the finance minister who's supposed to be the one who's concerned about frugality. Compare this with Gavin Newsom.
In our massive deficit days.
Massive deficit days at a time that we're facing, this was a little while ago, but at a time that it's just come out now, at a time that we're facing, labor strife and tariffs on softwood lumber, which are terrible for us, and tariffs on aluminum. We smelt aluminum in BC, right? Which are horrible for us. And all of these things, headwinds, unemployment going up, cost of housing is extreme. Finance minister spending $6,000 on a limo to travel around for a week rather than taking Ubers. I mean,
do you think that if you are dealing in the, tens of millions and billions of dollars every day, $6,000 all of a sudden seems like not that much money to you?
Well, I think that is a factor. But again, that's one of those things that we both met her. A lovely woman, nice person. And so it's kind of hard to say mean things about her.
Poor decision.
But I would say it was a very poor decision. And even if you do sort of have that tendency to lose perspective, if you've got that job, you've got to maintain that perspective. You got to rein yourself in knowing full well how this is going to play out. Now, you might have thought you were signing up for a limo and it was going to cost $600 and you ended up getting a bill for $6,000. That can happen.
Right.
Unlikely. And again, if it does happen to you as the finance minister, you better be prepared to wear it.
I only know the one time that happened, and that was with Dubiel in Arizona on the board retreat.
Was that the
limo bus
the
that
limo bus?
took everyone to that honky tonk?
Yeah. Was that did we end up paying $6,000 instead of $600 for the limo bus?
Yeah, it was supposed to be like $1,500 and it ended up being like $5,000.
Well, that wasn't worth it. I remember the limo bus, but we did stop at one of the organizers' houses and a few other stops that the organizer wanted to make along the way. Anyway, okay. Yeah, that's a good story, but that was not government money. So there's ridiculous driver, government ridiculous, number one. Number two.
Number 2, Doug Ford.
So Doug Ford was elected. They brought in traffic cameras. Traffic cameras, they say, save lives, and people slow down at those intersections when they know there's a traffic camera there. And of course, all of these traffic cameras in Ontario have been destroyed lately. Somebody's out there destroying traffic cameras. I'm amazed they haven't been able to catch the people who are destroying traffic cameras.
Yeah, they got them on camera.
Yeah, you would think they could set up some like wildlife cameras nearby because they know they put them up, they get knocked down, they're destroyed the next day. The things are worth a lot of money. They've got contracts with these companies that supply them and maintain them and repair them. And it was the Ford government that basically, facilitated these traffic cameras coming in. Now, after they've been destroyed, after they they're vandalized regularly, Ford's response is to, as you probably know if you've seen the news, say these are a cash grab and they've got to go.
Love it.
And that's the end of it. Cash grab. These are crushing people. Well, yeah, people are driving way too fast. I mean, I would give the BC government some credit here that they set the threshold on their cameras. At least, who knows, it could have changed. The former Solicitor General had directed the threshold on the speed cameras at intersections to be pretty high. And we don't talk about that. We know what it is.
We don't say the number.
But we don't say the number. But it's pretty high. But maybe in Ontario it was really low. I don't know. Traffic cameras, I think, probably do discourage a lot of people from speeding in those particular locations. A lot of time it feels like a cash grab, but you don't want to say something's a cash grab as a lawyer because you might get in trouble. Capital cash grab.
I like the like short political memories though that people have. Like most people will think this is another great thing that Doug Ford did. Like Doug Ford, man of the people, that works so well for him. I found him so compelling when he ate that ice cream last week. I went out and bought Chapman's ice cream. That's how compelling it was.
Well, he poured out that Crown Royal. He struggled with pouring out that bottle of Crown Royal. And like 3 days later, it didn't take long. Crown Royal has ads all over BC at all the bus stops saying Crown Royal, made in Canada, and made in Canada with Canadian wheat for the last 120 years. Crown Royal is moving their bottling operation to the United States. So that will save them a few pennies per bottle, and the savings will not be passed on to you. We bottle alcohol in our distillery, and we're not moving our bottling operations to the United States because our bottling is a table and a couple of machines there and some people sticking stickers on them because we're a craft distillery. But yes,
sometimes it feels like an arts and crafts distillery.
Well, we make great stuff. Actually, there's something new coming. But yeah, certainly it's ridiculous that he is now going to be seen as the hero who got rid of
traffic cameras that he brought in.
And I don't know how they deal with the contracts with all those different companies. You would think that there would be some sort of midpoint. I've been ticketed by speed cameras in Alberta going 9 kilometers an hour over the speed limit through an intersection in Edmonton, which is just ridiculous. And I can understand why people are angry about them. We had a government change here in BC largely because of traffic cameras. Gordon Campbell was elected because of that. So we'll see where that one goes.
There you go. That's our podcast. Stay tuned to our TikTok accounts for updates on what's going on with this IRP situation. As we know more, we'll be updating on there. And if you have a driving law-related issue, you received an IRP and you've been denied justice, you can give us a call at 604-685-8889 or find us online at vancouvercriminallaw.com and tune in next week for another exciting episode of Driving Law.